Hey there, are you like me? Do you have a bunch of magazines just lying around, whether they're on your bookshelf or in a magazine holder or sitting on your coffee table? Do you just have them accumulating? Have you really gone back to read the magazine cover to cover like 10 times and you really don't need it anymore? But you occasionally peek in at particular pages that you like, whether it's a recipe, whether it's a inspirational fashion or makeup spread that maybe has something you want to try out, that type of thing. Well, I definitely find myself doing that. And over the past year, I've been filing away the pages in magazines that I find useful. So basically, those things I mentioned, recipes particularly, I find to be the most useful. And I maybe don't follow them to a T, but I like the ingredient combinations, so I want to kind of keep that. Also, sometimes I'll find an article that I think is worth saving. So, what I do is I use the following: these plastic protectors, and I buy mine at the Dollar Tree. I think it's about 8 to 10 a pack, and they're $1, so it's super cheap. You can go to Staples or another store and they're going to cost more, and I don't think you should spend a ton of money on this. Then I use a box cutter. It's a little rusty, but it's still fairly sharp, and you want to use something that is sharp. You don't want to use a dull box cutter because the paper will snag and you can get a really messy edge, or it'll just cause the paper to crumple and rip as you try to take it out. Another option I've used is a really sharp sewing needle, and you score the edge, but you go fairly slowly. You want to be fairly slow because that can also cause that snagging and ripping of the paper. So I find though the box cutter is the best for that clean edge. So what I do is I take a magazine and I kind of press down on that spine in the middle, and then I will use my box cutter to score down the edge. However, here's a quick tip. When you are in a magazine and you're ready to take out a page, look at what side it's on. In this case, this is actually on the right. This is the left. So if it's the right I want to take out, and this is facing open like this, if it's the right, you should flip it over to the left and then score it from that back edge, only because these magazines, you read them, you tend to take that page from the right and flip it over to the left. So the paper has this bulge right here on the spine from where the paper just happens to naturally bump up here from all that folding over. At least that's what I noticed. So for me, I find it helps to take a right page, flip it over, score it from the left, and just be very slow and patient. Make sure your blade's making contact with the paper, because if it skips a section, you will definitely get a snag, a really big one. I don't mind small ones like this one right here, but you don't necessarily want a huge snag because sometimes there's text or an image that you lose a lot of. So I'm moving a little more quickly than I usually would, but it's fine. Just don't want to take forever showing this. Here we go. So this is that. I actually have another that I had taken out, and this goes with this article. So these are the recipes, these are the photos, and this one had a pretty clean edge. You can see this one has little snags. I actually have another one where I got a pretty big snag, so don't go quickly, it'll take a chunk out. And if you really want to even this out, you can take one of those paper cutters that has that sliding rule on it. Rather the sliding, it's like a sliding blade, and you can just line it up and clean it up if you care, but it's not a big deal to me. So these two, you put them together, and it, if you know what it is or you label what it is, it's not a big deal. You can just slide them in here, and maybe for instance this has another page here. There's actually two or more pages I think that are associated with these recipes, so you could put all those in one packet, and If they were not exactly the same thing, you could just take one article or photo, have it facing this way, and then slide the other one so it's facing out that way. And if you decide to scan these, or you look back at it at some point, you're like, I don't need that, I didn't like it, or whatever, you know, go ahead and take your paper out, put it in recycling, and you still have the plastic, and you can reuse that. The nice thing is, once you have done all this, you can file it away in a binder. I also suggest buying a cheap binder from the Dollar Tree, and you just stack them in there, and you'll realize after you do this a few times that you only wanted a couple of pages, a few articles or something from the actual magazine, and you don't need the actual big stack of 125 pages or whatever the magazine has. So let me know if you think this is helpful. I'm sorry I'm a little bit slow because I really wanted to show the process, and I really want to explain why I do this, because I don't think I've heard anyone else say they do this, and I just think it's a great tool for organizing articles that you like. I eventually plan to scan the articles I like, so I don't, you know, collect a million binders, which I haven't. I'm being so honest. I find I want very little after reading a magazine, so I probably won't have a million binders. But for now, this works. Scanning is a whole nother process, and I am so impatient to sit there and scan, but this is something that you can do little by little. Say you have a few minutes on like a Sunday and you're just kind of sitting around, you can grab a magazine and look through it. You know, you don't have to do like all 12 of your magazines at one time. You can just say, hey, you know what, I'm going to go through one and see what I want, put that in your recycling, and next time you have some free time, go ahead, do the same thing. And it's pretty therapeutic getting organized. It really is. So I want to share this in case anyone's struggling to tame their pile of magazines. And also, it's just a good way to figure out whether you want to subscribe again. I find that I've had magazine subscriptions where I'm like, I don't need it, because I realized I really didn't care for most of the articles in the magazine, so I just know, cancel it, don't waste any more money on it. If I see a magazine in the bookstore and I really, really want it, I'll just buy it one off. But why subscribe to something when you know you're not really into it, and you just don't know until a year, I find. So anyhow, not being long and drawn out, if you thought this was useful, please leave a comment. If you have other ideas on how to organize your magazine clutter, please share them with me. And until next video, have a great day. Bye.